MTV at the Movies in association with Maxell.
On this week's show, the X-Men are back. But could this be their last mission? Over the next 30 minutes, we take our usual unrivaled and exclusive look inside the making of the third and final chapter in the mutant saga. As the prospect of a mutant cure divides our heroes, who lives, who dies, and what comes next? Find out in this show. It's being billed as The Last Stand, and the third installment of an incredibly successful comic book franchise could be the one that shocks fans most.
Surprising things happen. The unthinkable, happens in this movie. It is very emotional, more than the other two, I think, and it's more action-packed this time around. If it is The Last Stand and it is the end of the X-Men, I think it's a wonderful way to go out. It goes out with a bang.
This is the film that finally ticks the boxes that X-Men fans have been waiting for. From the Dark Phoenix to fastball specials, if this really is the last X-Men movie, the filmmakers are going out in a blaze of glory.
This is The Last Stand, so he had to be big.
Joining the film this time around is an impressive array of new characters, plucked from the pages of the comic books.
So, you have talents.
As well as the return of all your old favourites. Plus, a new face in the director's chair, as Brett Ratner stepped in to replace the departing Bryan Singer, who had fallen for the lure of a big blue superpowered rival.
Look, in the sky, Chief.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
No, look, it's... you wanted to see me?
Ironically enough, the project that Ratner himself had recently left.
I put out in the universe that I wanted to do a superhero movie, a comic book movie, because that's why I was doing Superman. And when that didn't happen, I thought, I'm not going to get another opportunity. Brian's got X-Men, Sam Raimi's got Spider-Man, and Chris Nolan's got the Batman series. And then when Brian left to go do Superman, I said, oh my God, there's an opening. Got it!
Brett is passion personified. That guy is instinctive. He can't keep a secret. His heart is on his sleeve completely, and he has a blast doing it.
Boom! But while the cast were happy to see him, some of the fans weren't. And his appointment was met with some hostility on internet fan sites.
When I came onto the movie, I called Brian, he's a friend of mine, and I said, I'm gonna do X-Men. I know you probably want Stanley Kubrick to do it, but he's not available, and I'm gonna come in and do it. And he said, he gave me some advice. He said, whatever you do, don't read the internet. I'm like, why? What are you talking about? He goes, because they wrote all the same bad stuff about me on the first X-Men. And I avoided it. He said, I can't wait to see your version of this movie.
To take on X-Men 3 after Bryan Singer and after very successful is a brave choice. And Brett did it because he knew that he had something to offer to it.
We're here, then we come back to this side.
He has this persona of, hey, having a great time, life is good, da da da. But don't underestimate his ambition or his desire to make a great film. He was smart enough not to try and reinvent the wheel. He's decided, okay, what works is this, and he was right, but what we can add to it is the emotion.
We're not kids anymore. Hey, I'm not your father.
It was more important to me to make a film that fit into the trilogy instead of making a film that was just making my own. It was more important to me to really tell a sequential story. So you watch the first, you watch the second, then you watch the third, and it felt like a climax.
And while it seems hard to believe that Hollywood would resist the temptation of making another X-Men movie, all concerned are adamant that this is the final chapter.
For me, when I read the script, I knew it was the last one. It wasn't even called The Last Stand then, it was just called X-Men 3. But I just felt like, how much farther can they go?
People aren't believing us, that, there'll be another. I'm like, it's called The Last Stand. It really is. And I think fittingly it's epic. And what happens with some of the characters is going to be shocking to people.
We're getting killed out here.
Yeah, I know. They're not ready, Storm.
Logan?
Oh, don't get your panties in a bunch. I'm just... The stakes are higher than they've ever been. And I remember when I was first pitched the story, and I don't want to give it away, but some shocking things happened early on.
Please, stay with me.
That were not in the comics, have never been in the comics. And I thought, that's brilliant.
You have no idea. You have no idea what is upon us now.
You don't want to get into that thing of, yeah, we know they'll make it at the end of the day. You want people, this is the end of the, you want people to genuinely be worrying about the fate of the people they love, the characters they love, and absolutely have no idea how this is going to pan out.
Most shocking of all is the return of Jean Grey and the much-anticipated Phoenix storyline, hinted at in the last film when she appeared to have been killed under a wall of water.
Jean. People dying in the X-Men universe is all relative because in X2, Jean Grey died and I saw her in the first day shooting on X3. So, I was like, what are you doing here?
I obviously die at the end of the second film, but make a comeback in the third.
Something woke her, but she has to be controlled.
It's something that we sort of started to deal with a little bit in X-Men 1 and 2, is that her powers are greater at times than she is, and that she's not always in control of them. It was really fun to take that character to a whole new level in the third one, and then also the conflict that brought within her as the Phoenix character started taking over sometimes more than the Jean Grey character.
Logan, you're making me blush.
You reading my thoughts?
I don't have to.
Professor Xavier has been keeping the dangerous and unpredictable Phoenix persona locked inside Jean Grey, a secret he has kept for many years.
He's challenged in this film, challenged by his fellow X-Men and challenged by his history, particularly the aspect of control that he has had. The manipulation that he's had over Jean Grey's life, which no one was aware of before.
I knew you'd come.
Of course. I've come to bring you home.
I have no home.
Something which seems to be a contradiction to his fundamental philosophy of tolerance and letting people be themselves.
You know, he thinks your power is too great for you to control.
Eric.
I don't believe your mind games are going to work anymore, Charles.
And yet he has denied Jean Grey that opportunity.
So you want to control me?
No, he does. No, I want to help you.
Only because he knew that she had such powers that if they were to be taken out of her control, could be as calamitous as we see in the story.
What's wrong with me?
Absolutely nothing. Eric, stop! No, Charles, not this time.
Stay out of my head. Both of them in their own way are trying to control her, and she does not want to be controlled by anybody, and can't control herself. So she's sort of this loose cannon in the midst of a war.
In a sense, she becomes a pawn, and yet such a powerful and potentially destructive pawn.
Meanwhile, one of the comic book's most beloved characters, Hank McCoy, aka the Beast, makes his debut in this film, with some bad news for the X-Men and the mutant community as a whole.
Who's the furball?
Hank McCoy, Secretary of Mutant Affairs.
Right, the secretary. Nice suit.
Henry, this is Logan. He's
Wolverine. I hear you're quite an animal.
Look who's talking.
I like the story that he is such a bright intellect, stoic, and yet of great prowess. And I thought this is a terrific character.
A major pharmaceutical company has developed a mutant antibody, a way to suppress the mutant X gene.
Suppress?
Permanently. They're calling it a cure.
The idea of the cure is the most crystallized version of the comic book into a story. And it was a brilliant plot point and something that every character can relate to, and also a really fitting idea for a war.
They wish to cure us, but I say to you, we are the cure!
The issue of the cure that comes up in this film is something that is incredibly personal to all of the mutants.
Is it true? They can cure us? There's nothing to cure. Nothing's wrong with you. Or any of us, for that matter.
It threatens to interfere with, their right to exist as they are, as free individuals. But at the same time, potentially offers an incredible opportunity for those who really feel they're suffering to maybe change their situation.
Who would want this cure? I mean, what kind of coward would take it just to fit in?
Is it cowardice to save oneself from persecution? Not all of us can fit in so easily. You don't shed on the furniture.
The whole idea that you could change something about yourself that you don't like or that makes life hard for you by taking a shot is tantalizing to everybody.
It's a question that, it forced me to think about, would I change myself if I had the opportunity? I went home day after day really pondering that question and trying to understand, would it be a good thing? Would it be a bad thing? How would it change the world as we know it?
For one of the original X-Men, the idea of a cure is particularly tempting.
Rogue is uniquely sort of singled out as far as being unable to fit in with regular life, anything that would even resemble a normal physical interaction with the world around her. The cure is an incredibly tempting idea.
Where are you going?
You don't know what it's like to be afraid of your powers. Be afraid to get close to anybody.
Yeah, I do.
Here's a girl with so much power, and yet she can never touch someone. She could never have a family. She could never kiss somebody, never have a relationship as we know it, It's kind of a prison as well as a gift.
Look, if you want to go, then go. Just be sure it's what you want.
Shouldn't you be telling me to stay? To go upstairs and unpack?
I'm not your father. I'm your friend.
She's sort of just coming into her own as a young adult and starting to feel confident and comfortable in her surroundings. There's still this massive part of her life that she's missing out on. And suddenly there's an opportunity. Suddenly there's a decision to be made.
Well, that's it for part one. But don't go anywhere, because after the break, we'll be delving deeper into the secrets of The Last Stand.
Very big things cooking up in the X-Men world in this one.
Finding out just what Halle Berry's real secret power is.
I realized that when I spin, I projectile vomit. It felt like a superpower. It cleared the room instantly.
And why it might not be the end for one particular X-Man.
I really have always wanted to make that picture.
MTV at the Movies, in association with Maxell. Are you prepared to seek the truth? Can you... But 5. Yes, the smart car... Them all for yourself. It's up to you. For a chance of winning this amazing competition, Ian McKellen or C. Jean Renault. Smart code breakers, log on to this website for your chance to win. MTV at the Movies, in association with Maxell.
Welcome back to part 2 of making the movie X-Men: The Last Stand. In this film, the X-Men face the threat of an enforced mutant cure, a prospect that forces the mutant community to choose between the moderation of Professor Xavier and the extremism of Magneto.
They wish to cure us, but I say to you, we are the cure!
And some of the new characters find themselves being drawn to Magneto's side.
Callisto. She's one of the new characters in the film. This is my first X-Men. Her powers are so cool.
And what can you do? So, you have talents.
That and more. Her senses are heightened, so she can track mutants. She can locate them. She can know what their powers are.
You can sense other mutants and their powers. Could you locate one for me?
She joins Magneto, and she sees him as someone that's going to help her fight against this cure.
Make no mistake, my brothers. The humans will draw first blood. Does anyone question you must answer? Who will you stand with?
What's good and what's bad, that's really sort of the premise of this whole movie. And Magneto is fighting for what he wholeheartedly believes to be real and right and just. And is that wrong? I mean, I don't know.
In the film, as in the comics, Callisto and Storm are definitely not the best of friends.
She has two major fights with Storm. And they're really aggressive fights. I mean, these people are not pulling hair. It's not a cat fight.
You know, you get a few dings and dangs.
My main concern during the fight was not hitting Halle in the face before her close-up.
Because Danya and I are not professional stunt women, we lost control of our limbs from time to time and, had a little run-ins with each other's faces.
From the start, the believability of the whole X-Men universe has depended on the casting of Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart as the embodiments of the two opposing ideologies of the mutant world.
Mankind has evolved, yes, into us.
When Bryan Singer did X-Men 1, he laid down a law that no one was allowed to read the comic book because he was terrified that people would come in with a slightly heightened kind of performance. And then he went and cast Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, who, you know, to American audiences at that point weren't as known. But really, that's the Pacino, De Niro and Heat. That's what that is, you know, two great actors who really head the kind of world and are so sincere and believable and complex and layered.
It's as though mutation began with Xavier and Magneto, and they represent and have within them all of the conflicts, all of the hopes and ambitions, all of the fears of what it is like to be other, to be an outsider and to be different.
Bryan Singer, he set the tone for this when we started making them. He had very specific ideas about the characters, making sure that he introduced them to an audience that may not have ever heard of the X-Men comics so that they would understand who these people were, what universe they lived in, and in his vision, that universe was one that we could all relate to.
And new director Brett Ratner was determined that his film would match that vision.
Bryan did a brilliant job at establishing the tone of the first two movies, and I try to keep that tone consistent and really try to focus on the emotionality of the story, because it was a very emotional story. It was obviously the last one of the series, and I wanted to pay off these characters, pay off their arcs, and the drama was there.
I know how you feel. Don't. When Jean died, I said don't. Maybe it's time for us to move on. Not everybody heals as fast as you, Logan.
I think that's one of the best things about it, is that they play this stuff straight, and that it's about heart. It's about the love between these characters, and what you've lost or won at the end of the film is these people you care about, and that's a good movie.
I mean, something's wrong.
What's wrong is I can't touch my boyfriend without killing him. Other than that, I'm wonderful.
Hey, I don't think that's fair. Have I ever put any pressure on you?
You're a guy, Bobby. Your mind's only on one thing.
What's always been very important to all of us is hanging on to the sort of integrity of the emotional stories, and I think that's ultimately why people will want to watch the movies, is because it's not just special effects and big explosions and fantastic fight scenes. We do that really well as well, but don't get me wrong, it looks fantastic.
As the third and final film in the saga, the filmmakers wanted The Last Stand to be the most spectacular yet.
I remember the first time I went to set, I wasn't even working, and I went to set to see Hugh and some of the other X-Men guys, and things were exploding in the back. And I was like, wow, I'm in a big movie.
To a certain extent, it seems like everyone's kind of making it up as they go along. They don't really know exactly like where some car is going to land if you explode it. They're like, yeah, it's really safe. We know what we're doing. It's like, there's a certain amount of chance. You know what I mean? You don't really know what's going to happen when some stunt happens.
That's one of the reasons I always sign up to do these movies, because I love the sort of the physicality of making these movies and doing my own stunts. You have to be careful what you ask for, because I did ask for all this flying and spinning, and I realized that when I spin, I projectile vomit. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have asked for that. It felt like a superpower. It cleared the room instantly.
And as well as fast sets, the filmmakers used cutting-edge digital effects to bring these super-powered characters to life.
Back off. We take something real and then we just use the CGI to enhance it. We're not inventing these characters or stuff. We take the powers and we try to ground it in some reality so it has some physics to it. The way the ice works, the way the fire works.
Come on, Iceman. Make a move.
The way all that stuff is all in the physical world. It's not otherworldly.
Ultimately, the filmmakers are hoping the central themes of the movie will strike a chord with its audience.
I hope that the movie, at the end of the day, really gets people talking and gets people thinking about choices. That's what really the movie's about, is a choice.
Wait. I can't do this.
Yes, you can.
People who are different have a right to be different. They don't have to conform to feel like they have to fit in. And this movie raises all those issues.
It's what we all want.
No. It's what you want.
I think any story that resonates those values of standing up for good, uniting in a just cause.
It's time we make our choice. If you're with us, then be with us.
Those are big ideas. They're epic ideas, and they are inherently entertaining. And I think they remind us that we're capable of doing great things.
People are gonna love it. I think people are really gonna enjoy the film. I think people that are gonna go and sit in the movie theaters because they wanna get entertained are gonna get entertained. But they're also gonna come out of the movie with a message. There's a lot of social awareness in the movie, and I think that's a theme that has carried along from 1, 2, and now 3.
And could this really be the final chapter in the mutant saga?
This would be a very satisfactory conclusion to the X-Men story on film, for the time being, at any rate.
If this is the last movie, I think, it's been left in a really interesting and awesome way, but at the same time, it's not impossible that there could be more. There's still plenty more X-Men stories to tell.
Could there be a Magneto movie? Could there be the Xavier School movie? Could there be a Wolverine movie? Could some of the characters from this movie show up in the Wolverine movie? Of course.
3, 2, 1, action!
And the idea of a Wolverine solo movie seems very popular with all the right people.
I would love to get the offer, Fox, please offer me the Wolverine movie.
I really have always wanted to make that picture. I love the character. And I understand why in the 40 years of the comic book's inception it's been such a popular character, because for me, Wolverine is one of the great screen archetypes. I think we have more to explore, so I want to do another movie. We have a script by David Benioff, who's a fantastic writer. He has done 2 drafts, and he's about to do a final draft, and then we'll find a director, and away we go.
MTV at the Movies, in association with Maxell.